Hey everyone, this is Mike, and yesterday me and my static did our last run of Eden's vs Savage weekly clears, because after this week we are basically going to be on hiatus with our static, as we've been doing these fights for so long now. It's been about like, what, 6 months or something at this point. So we're gonna be taking a little break from Savage. Now, I got pretty lucky with my loot drops as well, so I pretty much got all of the gear anyways. So for me, it's not that big of an issue now. Because it was the last week, we decided to spice things up a little bit, and me and Lily, our astrologian, ended up switching roles for E7. Savage probably the easiest fight, I would say, in this tier, which sounds really weird because it's the third fight in the tier, but I think E7 is a really easy fight once you know what you're doing. Maybe not necessarily to prog because you need to learn the portals and stuff, but once you learn all of the fight, I think E7 is relatively simple actually. But anyways, beside the point. In the end, like, we just wanted to spice things up a little bit. We were at E7 at that point, and Lily wanted to play Black Mage, and I was like, you know what, I want to play healer, so let's switch it up and see if we can do something. And this was my very first pull. I end up like greeting some stuff here or there, and I end up dying to it at the start of the fight as well. But outside of that, it was actually a whole lot of fun to play. Now, I made a video on White Mage not too long ago, a few days ago, where I talked about healing, how I feel about healing sometimes as well, where I don't necessarily want to be responsible for 8 other people as well, because I am just not a great healer in my opinion. Now, I do think that if I were to put in some time, I would be a pretty decent healer, but at the moment it is just something that I am not extremely comfortable on when it comes down to 8-man content. When it comes down to dungeons, I'm super comfortable. I played a lot, like pretty much I only play healer in dungeons at this point, unless I go in with some friends of mine, because I just know that I can carry the party if it need be, with all of the healing and that kind of stuff, because the healer is the backbone of the party, and if people are making mistakes, then the healers are there to basically rectify those and make sure that the party stays alive. Now, in that video I also talked about how I can sometimes get a little bit annoyed or frustrated at my teammates for making those mistakes and me having to make up for them. Now, I don't necessarily mean it that I'm getting mad at my teammates or that they are really frustrating me and that I'm getting angry at the game when I'm playing or something like that. It is more or less a, you just made a mistake, I need to make sure that I can save you before you die to the next mechanic, that kind of thing. And then if they were to die to the next mechanic, then I would kind of feel bad as a healer, so I don't necessarily always want to have that responsibility, so to speak. Now, I did make it kind of sound like it was a very negative thing and that it is something that I do not like about playing healer, but that's actually not really true. Sometimes, believe it or not, I'm not that great with words, so I probably expressed it a little bit more negative than I actually meant for it to be. When it comes down to playing healer, making up for other people's mistakes is part of your job description. You are the person that is supposed to rectify the mistakes of other people if they mess up mechanics, or at least try to, because it's not always possible, of course. Now, I made it sound like it was a very negative thing. On the other hand, a lot of people think this is a very positive thing for healer, because it makes it so that healer stays interesting, because when it comes down to playing a tank or a DPS, once you've figured out your rotation, you're going to be doing exactly the same thing on these boss fights all the time, because there is no real change that you have to be doing when it comes down to like pull to pull things. Whereas with the healer, your rotation, or your healing rotation I should say, can change from pull to pull depending on who screws up what mechanic where. And even though whenever I play healer, like for example I play it on stream from time to time as well, I might start cursing at my teammates, being like, oh my god, why did you get hit by that? Or, ah shit, the tank needs healing because there's a tank buster happening, or fuck, there's an AoE coming, people need healing. Like, I might sound very hectic, I might sound frustrated from time to time, but it's not really the case. And I'm gonna make a comparison here to League of Legends. I know these two games have nothing to do with each other, but there is kind of a comparison I can make here. Now, League of Legends is another game that I actually played quite a lot the last few weeks, especially at the moment with the event that's going on at the moment, which is Spirit Blossom event. Really cool thing with League of Legends going on at the moment. Now, anyways, when it comes down to playing League of Legends, I am a okay player, I would say. Most of my games I play really well, but also a lot of those games I end up losing because of bad teammates. And whenever that happens, it feels bad. You're having a really good game, your teammates are having a bad game, and because of that you lose, and you couldn't really do anything about that, and that just feels bad. And that doesn't necessarily make it so that even though you are frustrated from playing that one game, that you don't want to play League of Legends anymore. And you can kind of make that comparison to Final Fantasy as well. It's not because I play healer for a fight, people make mistakes, it's kind of annoying to try and rectify all those mistakes. Doesn't mean that I don't like to play healer anymore. Healer is something that I really like to play. It is something that eventually I hope to one day main in a static environment as well, so that I can actually get some real practice on healer, because at the moment, as I say, I only really play it in dungeons. I play it every now and then in an extreme primal fight, and when it comes down to Savage, I barely ever played it. Like, the last time I actually played healer where I cleared a whole tier on it was Sigmascape Savage, which is like 2 years ago at this point, so I don't really play it all that much. I did do some Titan Savage, and I believe I did thingy as well, Leviathan, and then of course now E7 Savage, but I don't really play it all that much, and I would really like to get more practice on it, to get more comfortable on it, because when it comes down to jobs in Final Fantasy XIV, or at least roles, a lot of people are very comfortable with playing DPS because there is no real pressure on you, so to speak. Now, technically there is, because the DPS are the main people responsible for the DPS check, but when it comes down to more casual content like Extreme Primals, there is no real DPS check. Yes, it is still there, but as long as you've got a little bit of gear, like, that thing is negligible at best. But when it comes down to Savage, the DPS check is a whole lot more noticeable. Now, still at this point, with having all of the gear that we have, the DPS checks also are becoming a joke, so it doesn't feel like you have all that much responsibility as a DPS player. You just need to do mechanics, and that is it. When it comes down to playing tanks or healers, you have the boss positioning as a tank, you need to use those defensive cooldowns, need to make sure you don't die to those tank busters, you have raid-wide mitigation that you need to use and that kind of stuff, and then when it comes down to a healer, you're responsible for keeping the party alive, and for a lot of people that can be something that puts them off from playing the job because they don't want all this responsibility. And I'm kind of someone like that as well. I was always kind of scared of playing healer. I made a video on this about, well, I think it's about a year ago at this point, where I talked about healer and tank anxiety, because I was somebody that was very anxious to play healer. I did not heal Savage content or Extreme Primal content because I was just scared to let the party die, and I didn't really feel comfortable in playing that role. But nowadays, like, I like to play it a whole lot more. I want to try and get better at it, and thus I am also planning to play it a whole lot more going into the future. I have gear for all of my healers at this point. I'm just missing some weapons basically, but I'll get those from the next Extreme Primal hopefully. And then I'm basically going to be trying to get a whole lot better at healer and basically get a little bit more comfortable on it, because as I said, healing and tanking actually isn't really all that bad. A lot of people like to glorify those two roles and make it seem like they are so much harder than they really are, but I think actually that the DPS role is probably the hardest to play, because you have that very intricate rotation, depending on the job that you play of course, and you still need to make sure that you're able to execute on all of the mechanics and that kind of stuff, whereas with something like, for example, a healer, your DPS rotation is pretty much non-existent, because you just press one button and then every 30 seconds you refresh that damage over time ability, but outside of that you're not really doing anything when it comes down to DPS. On the other hand, optimizing healing is really interesting and really fun to do, so that's why I am really hoping to one day play it in a static environment, so I can get that optimized healing done and basically see how it kind of feels to play like that as well. Of course, when it comes down to playing it in Party Finder, can't really do that because you always play with new people. Like your co-healer might do different things, have different ideas on who should do what, but when it comes down to a static environment, that is definitely something that you can do and that I am looking forward to doing at some point in the future as well. So that's kind of all I want to talk about in this video, kind of like rectify something that I said before, which might have come out a whole lot more negative than I actually meant it to be. I still really enjoy playing healer, otherwise I just wouldn't play it so much. Sometimes it might seem like I'm getting really frustrated playing healer, making up for the mistakes of other people, but as I said, it's kind of like playing League of Legends. Sometimes this just happens, but it doesn't mean that I don't like playing the game anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't like playing healer, because I still very much so like playing the role. So that's gonna be it for today. I kind of wanted to upload this gameplay in the first place when it came down to just uploading it raw with all of the banter that was going on, because we actually had a really good banter going on during this pull, but unfortunately enough, my microphone got kind of screwed up. The volume was extremely low on it, but that is fixed now hopefully, so it should be fixed for next stream. And then also I had some copyrighted music playing in the background, so I can't upload the pull as it was. Unfortunately enough, I do have it highlighted over on Twitch, so if you want to go check it out, you can just like follow the link in the description to my Twitch channel, and you can check out the highlights over there. But there is a high chance that that thing also gets muted, because there was, as I said, copyrighted music playing in the background. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate about that. But at least I thought I'd still make a normal commentary over it anyways, because I kind of wanted to talk about this as well. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.